Invisible hunters. Admiral Ilara Voss stood motionless before the enormous tactical display, her artificial eyes tracking the incoming alien fleet. The cybernetic implants, replacements after losing her natural sight during the Arcturus massacre 5 years ago, clicked softly as they adjusted focus, calculating trajectories with cold precision. "Time to Earth orbit?" she asked, her voice steady despite what the numbers told her. 36 hours, Admiral, replied Strategic Officer Kenji Takeda. Their formation suggests standard conquest protocol. The Vraxian Empire isn't even trying to disguise their intentions. The command center fell silent. Earth's conventional defenses, a modest fleet of 62 warships and orbital platforms, would be obliterated within minutes against the Vraxian armada. Over 250 vessels, each bristling with weapons that could reduce continents to ash, advanced with the confidence of predators who had never known defeat. "They expect us to follow established combat doctrine," Voss said finally, her scared face illuminated by the holographic light. "To die with honor defending our homeworld." She zoomed in on the lead vessel, the massive Worldrender, a 12-kilometer Leviathan that had participated in the subjugation of 11 civilizations. "We won't give them that satisfaction." She placed her palm on the biometric scanner. Authorization. Voss, Ilara Theresa, Admiral, Earth Defense Force. Activate Protocol Phantom. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, far beyond Neptune, where even the Vraxians' long-range sensors rarely scanned, 5 experimental vessels powered up their systems. Unlike traditional warships with their gleaming hulls and bright running lights, these ships appeared as writhing shadows against the void. Their nano-engineered surfaces absorbed all electromagnetic radiation. No heat signatures, no radar reflections, no communications leakage, just perfect voids moving silently through space. Aboard the ESS Wraith, Commander Maya Chen performed final system checks. A former smuggler recruited specifically for her unconventional piloting skills, Chen had a personal vendetta against the Vraxians after losing her brother during their raid on the Ta City colony. Dark drive operating at optimal efficiency, reported her first officer, Lieutenant Ravi Kumar. "We're completely invisible to all known detection systems." Chen nodded, her fingers dancing across neural interface controls. "And the Whisper missiles, armed and ready. 32 units, each capable of penetrating Vraxian adaptive shielding." Chen allowed herself a grim smile as she studied the tactical display showing the approaching enemy fleet. The Vraxians, like most spacefaring species, had evolved their warfare doctrine around the assumption that ships could always be detected. Energy emissions, thermal signatures, gravitational distortion. Space combat had always been a matter of seeing and being seen. Until now. "All hands, secure for stealth maneuvers," she announced. "We hunt in darkness." Across the solar system, 4 other Phantom ships, the Spectre, Revenant, Ghost, and Shadow, acknowledged their orders and began their silent approach. Each vessel carried elite crews chosen not just for their skills, but for their psychological profiles. People who understood that the coming battle would rewrite the rules of interstellar warfare. On the bridge of the Worldrender, Grand Marshal Zevex surveyed the Sol system with the confidence of a predator entering unguarded territory. No defensive formations, he noted to his tactical officer, his voice a rumbling bass that seemed to vibrate the air itself. No fleet movements. "Perhaps these humans understand the futility of resistance," replied the officer, his gray-scaled skin reflecting the dim red lighting of the bridge. Zevex's crest expanded slightly in the Vraxian expression of anticipation. "Begin preparations for orbital bombardment of their major population centers. We will make examples of their largest cities first." Neither he nor any member of his species could conceive of what was coming, a threat they couldn't see, fighting by rules they didn't understand, using technology they had never imagined possible. The silent warships of Earth closed in, deadly and invisible. The Vraxian fleet spread across the inner solar system with methodical precision, their formation expanding like a predatory organism extending its limbs. Zivex's command vessel, the massive Worldrender, remained at the formation's heart, surrounded by concentric rings of battle cruisers and destroyers. Establish orbital control patterns, Zivex ordered, his secondary appendages manipulating the three-dimensional tactical display. Priority targets are their defense platforms and communication arrays. The fleet's separation created exactly the vulnerability Admiral Voss had anticipated. As the Vraxian vessels dispersed to cover more territory, gaps formed in their sensor coverage, blind spots that would have been insignificant against conventional ships, but perfect hunting grounds for the Phantom Fleet. Aboard the ESS Wraith, Commander Chen guided her vessel through one such gap, approaching a heavy cruiser designated Target Alpha. The alien ship, over 2 kilometers long with its distinctive bone-like protrusions housing weapon systems, dwarfed Chen's vessel, but size meant nothing when your enemy couldn't see you. Weapon status, Chen asked, her voice barely above a whisper despite the fact that sound couldn't travel through space. The habit of silence had been drilled into the Phantom Fleet crews, as if noise itself might somehow betray their position. Whisper missiles armed and tracking, Lieutenant Kumar confirmed. Target's shield harmonics analyzed and countermeasures prepared. Chen's hands hovered over the neural interface. Comms, what are they saying? Lieutenant Santos, monitoring the Vraxians' communications, removed his headset. His face had gone pale. They're discussing bombardment patterns. New York, Shanghai, Lagos. They're planning to hit population centers first to break resistance. A cold silence fell over the bridge. Then Chen activated the encrypted quantum channel to Admiral Voss's command center. Wraith in position. Target acquired. Requesting execution order. Voss's voice came through with perfect clarity, a property of quantum entanglement communications. No delay, no possibility of interception. All ships report ready positions. Remember your training. 1 strike, then immediate repositioning. Don't get greedy. She paused, then added, "These bastards came to exterminate us. Show them why that was a mistake." Execute. Chen initiated the attack sequence with a thought. 4 whisper missiles, revolutionary weapons that maintained the same stealth properties as their mothership, detached silently from the Wraith. Unlike conventional missiles with bright propulsion systems, these weapons accelerated using gravitic manipulation, creating no visible thrust and minimal spatial distortion. The missiles streaked toward the Vraxian cruiser, completely invisible to its defensive systems. They struck simultaneously at 4 precisely calculated weak points, junctions between the vessel's primary power distribution network and its shield generators. The Vraxian cruiser didn't explode dramatically. Instead, cascading power failures rippled across its hull as critical systems overloaded. Its shields flickered and died. Weapon ports went dark. Life support failed. Within 30 seconds, the massive vessel was dead in space, its crew either killed instantly or trapped in rapidly decompressing compartments. Across the solar system, similar scenes played out as the other Phantom ships struck their targets. The ESS Spectre disabled 2 destroyers near Mars. The ESS Ghost neutralized a communications relay ship, cutting off a portion of the Vraxian fleet from Central Command. On the Worldrender's bridge, alarms blared as reports flooded in. 3 vessels lost contact simultaneously. The tactical officer reported, his crest flattening against his skull in distress. No distress calls. No weapon signatures detected. Impossible, Zivex snarled, his massive form rising from the command chair. Nothing can approach undetected through our sensor grid. Another vessel just went dark. The officer continued, mandibles clicking nervously. Patrol Group 7 reports visual confirmation of cruiser dominance losing power, but no attacker visible on any spectrum. For the first time in his 3-century military career, Grand Marshal Zivex felt something alien crawl through his nervous system. Uncertainty. He had conquered 11 star systems, crushed countless rebellions, and faced the most advanced weapons of the known galaxy. But he had never encountered an enemy he couldn't see. "Full defensive formation," he ordered, his voice carrying an unfamiliar edge. "All vessels initiate continuous sensor sweeps on rotating frequencies." What he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that no sensor yet developed could detect Earth's phantom fleet. The silent warships were already repositioning for their next strikes, moving like ghosts through the heart of his armada. "Find them," Zevek roared, his massive fists slamming into a tactical display, shattering its crystalline surface. Nothing can be truly invisible. The Vraxian fleet abandoned their carefully planned formation, clustering into defensive groups with weapons pointed outward in all directions. Panic was an alien concept to their warrior culture, but the rising tension aboard their vessels came dangerously close. "Grand Marshal," the science officer ventured, his crest flattened in submission, "I have a theory. The humans may have developed technology that absorbs rather than reflects or deflects energy. Our detection systems rely on reflection or emission. They would be blind to perfect absorption." Zevek's compound eyes narrowed. "You suggest they've created ships that are essentially holes in space. That's beyond even the capabilities of species far more advanced than these primates." "The humans don't follow standard technological progression," the officer replied carefully. "While we focused on weapons and propulsion, they might have diverted resources to stealth research." After a moment of consideration, Zevek gave a reluctant nod. "Begin bombardment of their orbital facilities. If we can't find their ships, we'll force them to reveal themselves defending their infrastructure." Throughout the inner solar system, Vraxian vessels opened fire on Earth's orbital platforms, research stations, communications satellites, and defensive installations. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles tore through space, reducing the structures to debris. In her underground command center, Admiral Voss watched the destruction with calm detachment. The platforms, evacuated days earlier and replaced with sophisticated decoys, emitting false life signs and communications, had served their purpose. "They're getting desperate," Vice Admiral Torres noted. "Breaking formation like this goes against everything we know about Vraxian battle doctrine." "Fear makes everyone sloppy," Voss replied, her cybernetic eyes tracking movement patterns across the holographic display. "Even them. Especially them. They've never had reason to fear before." She opened a secure channel to all Phantom ships. Phase 2 initiated. Prioritize their sensor arrays and communication nodes. "Captain Rivera, you have tactical command for this sequence." Aboard the ESS Ghost, Captain Marcus Rivera acknowledged the order. A former Special Forces operative who had survived 2 years in a Vraxian prison camp, Rivera knew their psychology better than any human alive. "They can't accept what's happening," he told his bridge crew as they positioned themselves amid the enemy formation. "Their evolutionary history as apex predators makes the concept of being hunted fundamentally incomprehensible to them." The Ghost moved with deliberate precision through the Vraxian fleet, targeting the external sensor arrays that dotted the hulls of their larger vessels. Using precise micro-laser systems that left no energy signature, Rivera's weapons officer systematically eliminated the alien sensory capabilities. Like blinding a predator, Rivera murmured as another sensor cluster silently disintegrated. Meanwhile, the ESS Revenant, commanded by Captain Layla Wade, positioned itself beneath the largest Vraxian battleship after the Worldrender. Wade, whose body was 40% prosthetic after barely surviving a Vraxian attack on Europa, guided her ship with cold precision. "Boarding pods ready," her tactical officer reported. Wade nodded, feeling the familiar phantom pain in her reconstructed limbs. "Deploy on my mark. Remember, this isn't about vengeance. It's about intelligence gathering." Inside the specialized boarding pods, the elite Terran Marines in stealth exoskeletons made final preparations. Major Darius Wilson addressed his squad through encrypted comms. "We've trained for this moment for 3 years. These bastards think humans are soft technological infants. Time to show them what happens when you back a clever primate into a corner." As the boarding pods silently detached from the Revenant and moved toward the alien vessel's hull, Admiral Voss's voice echoed in their helmets. "Remember your primary objective, the communications hub. We need their fleet protocols and encryption keys." Wilson checked his quantum-phased cutting tools one last time. "Understood, Admiral. We'll be ghosts in their machine." The turning tide. The quantum-phased cutting tools made no sound as they melted through the Vraxian battleship's hull. Molecules separated without heat or friction, creating a perfect entry point that would reseal itself after the Marines passed through, leaving no evidence of the breach. Major Wilson led his squad into the alien vessel's maintenance corridor. Their stealth exoskeletons adapted to the environment, actively sampling the surrounding visual environment and projecting it across their surfaces, rendering the wearers nearly invisible to the naked eye. "Remember," Wilson whispered through the tactical net, "the Vraxians evolved as apex predators on a high-gravity world. They're stronger, faster, and more durable than us. Direct confrontation is suicide." His squad needed no reminder. Each had been selected not just for their combat skills, but for their personal motivation. Sergeant Naomi Lynn had lost her entire family when the Vraxians attacked the Ganymede mining colony. Corporal Rodriguez had watched his daughter's refugee transport obliterated during the Mars evacuation. Lieutenant Choi had spent 18 months as a prisoner in Vraxian laboratories, the surgical scars still evident beneath her cropped hair. They moved through the vessel's circulatory system of corridors like ghosts, their footsteps distributed perfectly across the flooring to eliminate sound. The environment itself worked to their advantage. Vraxian ships were designed for efficiency rather than security. Why waste resources on internal sensors when no enemy had ever penetrated their vessels? At an intersection, they encountered their first Vraxian, a maintenance worker nearly 3 meters tall with its armored exoskeleton and multiple manipulator limbs. The alien, engaged in repairing a power conduit, never detected the humans until Sergeant Lin was directly behind it. Her nanoblade, a monomolecular cutting edge powered by gravitational manipulation, severed the creature's central nervous cluster in a single silent stroke. "Central nexus is 2 levels up," Lieutenant Choi reported, consulting the ship schematics compiled from previous intelligence. "Their communication hub should be adjacent to it." Wilson nodded. "Rodriguez, Lin, establish security perimeter. Choi, with me. Standard infiltration protocol." They ascended through a maintenance shaft, avoiding the main lifts where they might encounter Vraxian crew. The ship's internal organization reflected the aliens' hierarchical psychology. Command functions at the center, protected by layers of less critical systems. The communication hub, a circular chamber filled with crystalline computing structures, was guarded by 2 Vraxian warriors. Unlike the maintenance worker, these were full members of the warrior caste, their exoskeletons augmented with combat enhancements and neural interfaces. "Hold position," Wilson ordered as he studied their movement patterns. "We need 15 seconds of uninterrupted access to their main terminal." Rodriguez deployed 2 microdrones, devices smaller than insects that floated on carefully controlled gravity fields. They positioned themselves at opposite ends of the corridor beyond the chamber. "Ready," he whispered. Wilson gave the signal. The microdrones simultaneously emitted short-range electromagnetic pulses designed to mimic Vraxian emergency protocols. The guards, responding to what they perceived as a security alert, rushed from their posts toward the apparent disturbance. The moment they cleared the doorway, Wilson and Choi slipped into the communication hub. Choi moved directly to the central terminal, connecting a specialized interface device that looked like a small silvery disk. "I'm in," she reported after bypassing 3 layers of encryption. Beginning Spectre virus upload. The virus, developed by Earth's best AI programmers, was designed not to disable but to infiltrate and observe. It would gather ship schematics, vulnerability assessments, fleet communications, and tactical protocols, all while remaining undetected by Vraxian security systems. 80% uploaded, Choi whispered, her fingers dancing across the interface. Primary encryption keys acquired. Through the tactical net, Admiral Voss's voice spoke directly into their helmets. "Well done." Complete the upload and extract immediately. The tide is about to turn. Grand Marshal Zevek stood in the World Render's Tactical Center, surrounded by his most senior officers. The holographic display showed their fleet's diminishing numbers. 32 vessels disabled or destroyed without a single confirmed enemy sighting. Unacceptable, he hissed, his exoskeleton extending combat spines in agitation. An enemy we cannot see is an enemy we cannot defeat. The science officer approached cautiously. Grand Marshal, I've completed analysis of the debris from our destroyed vessels. The damage patterns suggest precision strikes against specific vulnerabilities. Power junctions, shield generators, propulsion nodes. They know our ships intimately. How? Zevek growled. Unknown, but I've developed a countermeasure. The officer gestured, and a holographic display shifted to show small dart-like objects. Hunter-killer drones, autonomous units that detect minute gravitational distortions rather than conventional energy signatures. If these human vessels truly bend space around them, they must still displace mass. Zevek considered this. Deploy immediately. Saturate all approach vectors. Throughout the Vraxian fleet, launch bays open to release thousands of hunter-killer drones. The tiny machines spread outward in spiraling patterns, their sophisticated sensors probing space for the slightest anomaly. In her underground command center, Admiral Voss watched the new development with interest. They're adapting faster than expected, she noted to Vice Admiral Torres. Those are gravitational distortion sensors. Will they detect our ships? Torres asked, concern evident in his voice. Voss allowed herself a small smile. Not if Captain Nguyen has anything to say about it. This is precisely why we held the Shadow in reserve. She opened a secure channel. Captain Nguyen, execute Operation Ripple. The ESS Shadow, the newest and most advanced of the Phantom Fleet, had been lurking at the periphery of the battle. Its commander, Captain Lin Nguyen, was the youngest Phantom Fleet captain, promoted after developing the theoretical framework for quantum disruption technology. Acknowledged, Admiral, Nguyen responded, deploying countermeasures now. Unlike the other stealth vessels, the Shadow carried a specialized payload, quantum disruptor mines that could be deployed without breaking stealth. These devices created no energy signature when activated. Instead, they temporarily altered quantum probability fields in their vicinity, causing any sensors to encounter seemingly impossible mathematical solutions. The Vraxians rely on absolute certainty, Nguyen explained to his crew as they maneuvered through the expanding cloud of hunter-killers. Their entire evolutionary psychology is built around predictability and dominance. We're about to introduce them to quantum uncertainty. The Shadow deployed its mines in a precise pattern, creating a web that enveloped the alien fleet's perimeter. When activated, the mines didn't jam or overwhelm the hunter-killer sensors. They made the data itself contradictory and paradoxical. The effect was immediate and catastrophic for the Vraxian countermeasures. Hunter-killer drones began failing by the hundreds, their navigation systems encountering mathematical impossibilities that triggered fail-safe shutdowns. Some simply drifted inert. Others accelerated in random directions until their power cells depleted. On the World Render's bridge, Zevek received the reports with growing rage. How can every countermeasure fail? He roared, his massive fist crushing a command console. What manner of technology are we facing? Before his science officer could respond, a new alert sounded, a priority communication from the battleship Indomitable. Grand Marshal, the ship's commander reported, his voice tense, we're detecting anomalous activity in our communication systems. Data patterns suggest. The transmission cut off abruptly. Zevek turned to his communications officer. Restore that connection. I cannot, Grand Marshal. The Indomitable has initiated emergency isolation protocols. Their systems detected an intrusion. Understanding dawned with terrible clarity. This entire engagement, the stealth attacks, they were a distraction. In her command center, Admiral Voss received confirmation of the Spectre virus's successful deployment. All Phantom ships, execute Phase 3. Target designations are being transmitted now. Across the solar system, the 5 stealth vessels began their most coordinated and devastating attack run yet. With complete access to Vraxian tactical systems and real-time fleet communications, they struck with supernatural precision. The ES at Wraith targeted command and control nodes on 7 vessels simultaneously, using the Vraxians' own tactical network to predict defensive maneuvers before they occurred. The ESS Ghost systematically disabled propulsion systems on the fleet's outer defensive ring, trapping the remaining vessels in predictable positions. The ESS Revenant deployed specialized EMP weapons calibrated to the exact frequencies of Vraxian shield generators, leaving their hulls exposed to conventional attack. In orbit around Earth, the planet's conventional defense fleet, which had remained hidden behind the moon, powered up and began its advance. What had seemed like suicide hours earlier now became a coordinated strike against a blind, panicking enemy. On the world render, Grand Marshal Zevex faced the unthinkable defeat. For the first time in the Vraxian Empire's 1,000-year expansion, their forces were being systematically dismantled by a supposedly inferior species. "Prepare the jump drives," he ordered finally. "We will withdraw to regroup and analyze what we've learned." "The drives are offline," Grand Marshal, his engineering officer reported, panic evident even in the Vraxians' alien features. Something is interfering with the energizing sequence. Outside the massive flagship, the ESS Shadow had attached itself to the World Render's hull like a remora on a shark. Using technology derived from the quantum cutting tools, it had infiltrated the vessel's jump drive systems, introducing subtle errors into the energizing algorithms. Inside, the human boarding party completed their final objective, downloading the complete Vraxian tactical database and replacing it with corrupted data that would spread throughout their empire when the survivors returned home. "This is Major Wilson," came the transmission to Voss's command center. "Objectives complete. Extracting now." Admiral Voss turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel to the world render. Let's introduce ourselves." On the Vraxian flagship's main display, Admiral Ilara Voss's scared face appeared, her cybernetic eyes gleaming. "Grand Marshal Zevex," she said, her voice calm and measured. "This is Admiral Voss of the Earth Defense Force. I believe it's time we discuss terms." Zevex's massive form seemed to deflate slightly, but his voice remained defiant. "You cannot expect the Vraxian Empire to surrender to a single planet." "Not surrender," Voss corrected. "Mutual recognition. You came here expecting easy prey, but you found something else entirely. The next Vraxian fleet that enters this system will be destroyed completely." This was just a demonstration. She leaned closer to the camera, her artificial eyes boring into Zevex. "You evolved as apex predators, Grand Marshal, but so did we. The difference is, we know what it's like to be prey as well. It teaches one creativity." 3 days later, the remnants of the Vraxian fleet limped from the solar system, having signed the first non-conquest treaty in their species' history. Earth had gained not just survival but recognition among the galactic powers. In her office overlooking the reconstruction of the orbital defense platforms, Admiral Voss reviewed the after-action reports with her senior staff. "They'll be back," Torres predicted, "once they analyze what happened and develop countermeasures." "Of course they will," Voss agreed. "But by then, we'll have moved beyond these technologies." She gestured to the blueprints spread across her desk, designs for a new generation of defensive systems that made the Phantom fleet look primitive by comparison. "The Vraxians made a critical error in their assessment of humanity," she continued. "They saw our technological inferiority and assumed we would fight by their rules. They never considered that being the underdog for our entire evolutionary history might have advantages." She picked up a small artifact recovered from the Vraxian flagship, a ceremonial object that, according to their intelligence, represented the Empire's unbroken string of conquests. "They hunted from a position of strength," Voss said, turning the artifact in her hands. We survived by our wits, and in the end, that made all the difference. Outside her window, a squadron of conventional warships performed a ceremonial flyby, their hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Behind them, invisible to all but the most specialized sensors, flew 5 phantom ships, shadows within shadows, guardians at the threshold of human space. The silent warships of Earth, once a desperate gamble, now the vanguard of a species the galaxy would underestimate only once.